Welcome everyone to today's live. It looks like we are live right now, and welcome to the first of this five-part series on the power of the creative cycle and the five elements. If you're new to my channel, I wanted to extend a warm welcome to this channel, Flow with Wenling. My name is Wenling. I'm a mindfulness, well-being, productivity, and flow a coach. My primary passion and preoccupation is with supporting you to cultivate a sense of connection with yourself and with the pulsation of life so that you can manifest your dreams and find that purpose and fulfillment in life that is aligned with the divine. And this is really what the Power of the Creative Cycle is all about. So, within this five-part series, I'll be sharing a little bit more about the creative cycle, what it is, as well as the five elements, and how each of these elements relate to a specific aspect of your life, as well as specific aspect of the different cycles that we can see both outside in the external world and also inside within us. So if you're tuning in live, you can pop that in the chat and let me know, say hi, let me know where you are from and how you are today. I'm going to leave a couple of moments in case anyone is watching this live. And also, if you're watching this on replay as well, share in the chat what brought you here, a little bit about why you're curious about the creative cycle. And so the creative cycle is a process with regards to the fluctuations and the flow of things in life. Welcome, Gina. Oh, great to have you join us. I'm really excited that you're joining us today. And if you'd like to share a little bit about what brought you here today as well, let me know so I can focus the rest of our conversation today a little bit more towards what you'd like to find out more and what brought you here today. So, in the meanwhile, let me share a little context about the creative cycle. So, the creative cycle is a framework that is rooted in Taoist philosophy. And Taoist philosophy is a centuries old practice and way of being and a way of also looking at life. And you don't necessarily have to believe in Taoism in order to benefit from this philosophy, because this philosophy can also be observed in various different domains. Later on, I'll give you a couple of examples from the design industry and the tech industry as to how this creative cycle can be applied. But so coming back to the creative cycle is this pulsation of each of these elements flowing from one to the other. Let's see, Gina said in the chat, I want to write a book, but I have been struggling with the project. Gina, would you like to share a little bit more about what you find difficult about this book project that you've been working on? At what stage are you on right now with the book writing? Have you started to write your draft? Are you at the ideation phase? Are you working on the edits? Let me know in the chat, and then I'll continue to come back to the conversation today. So, in the philosophy of Taoism, it is believed that, very similar to the Big Bang Theory, that before the creation of everything, there was a great nothingness. And I share about this in my course, Cultivating Wholeness, the five elements, as well as in my other course, Transcend Loneliness, Journey Home to the Divine or the Tao. And there's this idea that before there were manifest things in the world, there was this great nothingness and this great emptiness that is this void and vacancy that has the potential for everything to manifest. And from that void, what happened was the creation of two forces that you might have heard of and you might be familiar with, called yin yang. And these are two equal and opposite forces that underpin everything. They are constantly in this dynamic equilibrium, meaning it's not static. Instead, it's always in flux. And we can also feel this flux as we transition throughout a day, from sunrise to midday to sunset to midnight, as well as also with the the moon phases as well. And you can see this in this beautiful tapestry I have behind me. And also internally, for example, within the menstrual cycle, you can feel this as well. Um, so coming back to the creative cycle, from this yin yang, what happened was that then the yin yang, these two equal and opposing forces, then gradually developed and became what was the five elements. Or really, I like to call them the five phases, the five energies, because rather than objects, they are really states of being, states of transformation, states of forces or energies that we can notice ourselves being in and also observe outside in the world. And today we're going to focus a little bit about the water element. And I think it's great because Gina has just shared in the chat. There's so many ideas, but I'm having a hard time deciding the format and the voice. And because I don't have clarity, I'm dragging my feet on the project. Oh, that's a good one. So if we come back to the creative cycle, and there are five elements. So because there's no beginning or end, everything loops into the other, and it is a never-ending cycle. If we had to pick a place to start, a very good place to start would be the water element. And if you think back to the first phases of your life and also the end of your life, at the very beginning of our lives, we spend 9 months gestating in the watery womb of our mother. I like to call this phase preconception because it's even before technically we're kind of conceived. And in that space, the watery womb space, we are freely allowed to be as we are. It is a safe and conducive space that we can develop without the pressures of having to perform, to fulfill expectations, to be or act a certain way, to succeed. And then if we come back also to specifically, right, Gina's situation, or with regards to, having lots of ideas and then having a hard time deciding the format, right? If we apply this creative cycle to the stages of creating something, and I know many of you who might be watching this on replay, you might be an entrepreneur, you might be an artist, a writer, you might be someone who's in the process of beginning to cultivate a relationship with someone else, maybe building a family or a new relationship with yourself. So the water element is really the ideation phase, the point where we start to allow ourselves to receive an idea or many ideas, really depending on what end of the spectrum you are. And at each of these stages or the phases within the creative cycle, there are various different challenges that we face. And in relation to what Gina has been sharing, at the water element phase, what happens is many of us may struggle because we have too many ideas and we don't know which one to really hone in on, and we don't know which one is so-called the best idea. At this stage, many of us already start to feel the pressure of having to perform, which is really at odds with the energetic state of this water element. So why is that the case? Let me share a little bit about this. Right? In the design industry and then also in the technology industry, what they have is the stage of moving from ideation to having a vision to taking action on the first minimum viable product, and then taking a moment to share the work, appreciate the work, and then finally refining the product. And all of these five stages actually map on to the creative cycle exactly, perfectly. So the ideation stage, which is where we are right now, the water element stage, is this process of connecting with all of the possible ideas and then eventually deciding on one way to move forward. Now, what is at odds here that we may often face and then we may actually struggle with is really the heart of also today's life. Right? This life is called how you can turn fear or transform fear into your fuel, into a sense of faith, freedom, and flow. At the ideation stage, a lot of us struggle and a lot of us in the end procrastinate. We avoid doing things. Like, for example, this live, I've been thinking for some time already to share the message of the creative cycle with a larger audience beyond the means and ways I've been doing so. And yet I also, for example, have been dragging my feet and holding myself back from scheduling the live. Now, if we come back to this idea of fear, why is it we experience fear? Any ideas from those of us who are live? What is holding us back from wanting to take that action or wanting to create more clarity? Why are we afraid? I'll leave a few more moments. And then, in the interest of time, of course, let's see. Gina said, paralyzed by the idea of not getting it right. Yes, definitely. Already at this stage where we start to experience some of what is the pressures of having to perform and succeed. And this can come from both the wood element, which is next. So when we water a seed, what happens is it begins to take root, it sprouts, it germinates, and then in due time, it bursts through the surface of the soil. And with the right conditions, with the sufficient sunlight, rain, soil, nutrients, it becomes a magnificent tree. And that is really the process of moving from ideation to having that vision, knowing the way something that's intangible in your mind. Maybe, for example, what's motivating you to write the book might be you have a message to share, or you have a story, or it is a way of healing you, a way of, for example, processing or finding closure for a certain part of your life. Or perhaps that is something that is really important and you really want to share this with the world and you hope that this message will resonate with other people. So that is the original intention, was just the water element. And then the wood element is seeing the possibilities for how this might take shape, meaning it could be a book, it could be a science fiction book, it could be a short story, it could be for example, a series of web stories that are online, it could be an audio book, an audio journey. So there are many means by which this can manifest. And at the wood element stage, related to the water element, what happens is a lot of us experience this stress and pressure to perform, to succeed. And in one of my courses where I talk about the five elements, because the five elements, they are also manifest within us. So we can also see these tendencies in our intrinsic predispositions, our personalities. So if I, for example, have very much a very wood element, a woody personality, and you see this in the tendency of this pressure of having to succeed, this stress when the things are not going according to how you anticipate them to go. And then if you anticipate or if you forecast or project that at this moment, at the water element phase, you can already predict or guess that things may not go well, then what happens is we hold ourselves back from even taking the action because we're afraid that if it doesn't go as we predicted, then we would have failed the idea, right? The idea is so pure at the water element stage. When we have that idea, it is so pure, that intention. And very often when we do something, if you're tuning in, if we are doing this in alignment with our true heartfelt desire, if this is something that is a message we want to share, if this is something that it has been in our hearts for a long time, then of course we have that feeling of wanting to do it right. And I love that Gina has shared exactly that, paralyzed by the idea of not getting it right. And what does that mean? Oh, I love that Gina shared. I have so much passion about the message that I want to share, that I really want to get it right. And thank you for that, Gina. And this really speaks to me as well. Um, so, how can we move away from that fear? How can we move into that space of, I want to get it right? This message is so strong and I feel it in my heart. And I know that this is something I have to do no matter what. And yet the fear is there. So, let me speak to a little bit about the fear. So, at each of the stages of this action taking or creation cycle, there is a emotion that manifests when we are connected with that stage, when in balance and when out of balance. And today so far we've talked about this element when in balance, sorry, when out of balance, which is fear. So fear of not getting it right, fear of failing ourselves, failing the message itself. And the really beautiful thing is that of all the elements, the water element is the closest to the source. And by the source, I mean the source of everything in life. If you're tuning in, you don't have to believe in religion, you don't have to be a spiritual being to have experienced that sense of union, have experienced that feeling of being a part of something much greater than yourself. And this is what I mean by feeling that connection to source, whatever that means for you in a very intimate and personal way. For me, personally, that means feeling and being in that sense of connection with everything around me, both the things that are manifest and more tangible, as well as the invisible things that I can feel and sense, but I can't quite explain with the current level of science and technology that we do have right now. And so, if we come back to this idea of fear, why do we tend to feel afraid? Usually, right, humankind, our species feel afraid when we feel threatened, when we feel that there is this fear of um, a risk that we might not survive. Or in this case, right, if you are working on an idea, you're afraid that this idea may not survive. It may not fulfill its full potential. Just as a mother, right, who is maybe, for example, gestating and holding space for this fetus, this newborn, is afraid that this child may not survive, and there's this deep fear. And how do we overcome this fear and transform that into a sense of faith and deep connection? Gina, what do you think? What has your experience been connecting with something much greater than yourself? I love that. Gina shared. Usually, when I've had the most success is when I get out of my own way and flow. I love that. But then I can use that as a procrastination excuse. Indeed. So if we come back to this idea of the philosophy of this creative cycle and the five elements, it is rooted in Taoist philosophy. And one of the tenets of this Taoist philosophy and the creative cycle is that we are microcosms of the macrocosm. And you are a creative vessel for the impulse of life and for ideas, for whatever is calling to be manifest to pass through you. So every single action you take, all the interactions you have, whatever you create, whomever you meet, whatever kinds of connections you have, and the wonderful things that you will co create together, that is you being that creative vessel, allowing this whatever is being called forth to pass through you, and then from things that are intangible in your mind, a message, a belief, an idea, it becomes a real thing. It becomes a book, it becomes a video course, it becomes a relationship, it becomes a business, whatever that is. That there's so many ways it becomes manifest. And then if we come back to the heart of this idea, I love that Gina mentioned in the chat, right, when we get out of our own way, and we know both from psychology and also this yogic philosophy that there's this idea of separation between different aspects of ourselves. There's the part of us that is the ego that wants to attach to the idea, attach to our achievements, our outcomes, our external appearance, to whatever we can cling on to. And this is really the root of the fear. And we're afraid because, are we really afraid because the idea will not be right, right? If we don't do it right, it's if we don't do it right, this comes from the belief also that if this idea is not done right, if the book is not a success, it necessarily perhaps means that we are not a success. And this is what is holding many of us back. And in one of my other lives, I also, one of the other meditators or practitioners within us also mentioned fear of success could also be a reason actually holding us back, because that is something that's beyond our anticipation, beyond what we can imagine. And fear is always with regards to what could happen, what is like outside of what we know, what is our comfort zone. So, how can we transform that fear into a feeling of faith and flow? By acknowledging that there is the part of us that is beyond our imagination. There is the part of us that is really, I believe, truly of the divine, meaning it doesn't, there's the part of you that doesn't need to prove yourself, and that there's a part of you that no matter how you do what you do, you can never get it wrong, because there's nothing to get wrong. Whatever actions you do, when you flow and listen to that aspect of yourself, the divine aspect of yourself, that is the will of the impulse of life. That is the message itself calling to be passed through you in that way. Now, that being said, that is when we take action in that inspired yet imperfect way, meaning we're really, really heeding to the message. We're really, really tuning in inwards through the part of us that is connected to the source, rather than the part of us that's saying, hey, I really want this book to succeed. I want to, get critical acclaim. It's for myself rather than for the message. And of course, not saying that it's a bad thing necessarily to want these things, because of course there's the human part of ourselves that also receives and requires to some degree validation. We need financial security, we need a sense of safety, we need a sense of being loved and seen in this world. And these are all important things with regards to the ego aspect of ourselves that needs to be fulfilled. And there's a very powerful framework that comes from psychology called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, talking about how humankind needs our basic needs met first, like having a roof above our heads, having basic food necessities being met, that sense that we are safe, and then also that sense of connection with others, that we are loved, we have valuable relationships, we have a sense of purpose in the world. We are doing meaningful work and contributing in some way. And then when we talk about having all of these basic things met, then we can reach that higher level of really connecting with what is my message? What is fulfillment for me? And how can I achieve that sense of personal fulfillment through my actions, through my relationships, through a deeper, maybe even spiritual connection with life? And so, if we come back to this idea, it's really again about yin yang. How can we balance that feeling, acknowledging that there's a part of us that is small, that will fail, that will feel afraid, that is susceptible and vulnerable. And then also tapping into and really honing in and connecting with that feeling of vastness, that pureness, that potential that is infinite and limitless that is within us. And this is really the source of what brings us the message. It comes from here. We don't own any of these ideas that come to us, any of these messages. I'm a true believer that really we are a vessel for what is being downloaded, being received. And then if we can begin to see, right, and move from that place of attachment, meaning this idea is mine. If I don't do this idea right, I'm doing not doing myself right. Also, I'm not doing the idea right. Into that place of I am creating space. I'm holding this idea and I'm giving it space to be what it is and how it's meant to be through my actions. And it's also the other thing is it's not going to be perfect. And it's amazing because when we talk about this yin yang, we humans are one of the few species in the world that have this capacity to know that we are so flawed. And at the same time, there are aspects of us that are so vast and we have this infinite potential that is perfect. So we are constantly having to balance this paradox of this vastness, this purity, this perfection, and then at the same time, this imperfection, the aspects of us that maybe we feel ashamed of, we want to escape, we want to ignore, we want to push away. So, really embracing all of this and then stepping into that feeling of what does it mean to be a vessel for my idea? And also, because today's life is an introduction to the creative cycle, I wanted to also hone into the idea that we are part and parcel of nature, great nature. And humankind, I think sometimes we forget this because we have our own way of doing things. And we've managed to hasten the process of everything. We've managed to create genetically modified foods. We've created, these technological homes and separated ourselves from nature. If we look to great nature, nature has its own way of flowing. It doesn't impose its own expectations, ideals, or preconceived notions on whatever it is allowing. It simply follows and creates that space for all that is to be, to arise, and to grow, to manifest. If we move away from that place of idea is mine, I'm gonna really want to do it justice, it has to be right, into that space of I am a container for this idea. I am the vessel, the tube, or the passageway through which this idea from something that is invisible to the world, I feel this message so strongly inside of me, into letting that pass through me. And as I take action, perhaps it might be a book that could be serialized, it might be a short story, it might be then a series of workshops, however that manifests, seeing it as it is and allowing that to really be and then begin to grow and develop. And this growth and development, why am I talking about the creative cycle? Is because in nature, it is a constant and never ending process of evolution. One cycle loops into the other and the other and the other, and it is never ending. Another obstacle that relates to why we procrastinate, why we avoid doing the things, even if we feel that strong calling, beyond the fear, is that many of us have this underlying hope or intention that I'm going to wait for the perfect conditions and then I will do it. I'm going to wait until it's really clear, then I'll take action and then I'll just do it one single time. It will be perfect and then I won't have to do it again. Now, that is one way of doing things. And perhaps, yes, in life, we do see that there are individuals and there are businesses, there are projects that seem to fit this. But I want to also invite you to dig deeper, because a lot of these people, situations, and examples that look like they've succeeded just on that one instance have actually gone through that process of iteration for many, many times before they reach what look like outward success or getting it right that one time. Because nature doesn't get it right the first time. If we look to nature, I have this sprawling monstera plant right behind me. Right, nature grows in a very organic way. There's no blueprint for success, unlike what we've been told, through marketing, through all these advertisements online. Nature constantly has to adapt to the imperfect conditions that it is being placed in. And what I mean, let's come back to the example of the seed, right? When from the ideation stage, right, when we begin to start to want to convey our message in the world, that's when we start to work on the vision, right? How will this idea grow? How will I bring it into the world? What are the full possibilities of what it might be? This is when we start to work with the conditions. Perhaps, I want to write a book, but I only have a few hours within a week, or it's not the perfect conditions. I was thinking perhaps that I would like to write in the mornings, but I never managed to wake up in the mornings. Or perhaps I don't feel motivated at that time of the day, or maybe I have childcare, and that's not the perfect conditions. But that's precisely how things are. Right, when that seed is planted, the seed is not going to choose the perfect location to be planted. It is us humans who then say this, we who then say, okay, we're going to create this beautiful greenhouse that is perfect. And then in these manufactured conditions, we can create what is the most perfect thing. And even in those scenarios, we know that what comes out is not necessarily perfect. I want to point to the fact that a lot of what we see in the world gives us the impression that we have to be perfect and that things are perfect. So, two examples, right? If we look at social media, a lot of what is put outside there, as well as, for example, today I've gone live on this webcam so that you can see all my complexion. I've not put on any makeup and you can see it's very imperfect. Right? A lot of YouTubers or a lot of speakers, whatever, individuals, when they go live, the way they present themselves is extremely perfect. The lighting is perfect, the makeup is perfect, the video angle is perfect. And so it gives you that sense of complete perfection and a sense of harmony, which is wonderful. And that is to meet certain expectations and standards. But in real life, a lot of things are not that way. Another example, when we go to the supermarket and we see the fruits, the vegetables that have been there, they've already gone through a process of sorting from before. So from the harvest, already, firstly, the foods are genetically modified. Then we harvest them. And then there is a very meticulous process of sorting out what is up to standard and what is not. And I must say that this process of sorting and then refining is also part of the creative cycle process. It is towards the end of the process, which is the metal element and the refinement. So after having your idea, after having that vision and choosing one path to go ahead, let's say you want to start writing and you pick an idea for what you want to write or how you want to start writing. Then you start writing, and then you have your first draft. After that first draft, acknowledging and appreciating that first draft and maybe sharing it with your publisher or maybe with a trusted friend or your writing coach, then we reach that stage of refinement and reviewing and saying, oh, this was good, that was not good. This part needs to be edited. This way of phrasing is really good and interesting. Why not experiment with this the next time? So you can see that throughout the creative cycle, there are actually different stages, and really the place to be perfectionistic, the place to say I sort and clear what is good and what is not, and I start to look into the refinement, is the metal element stage. And at the wood element and at the water element, we're not there yet. We didn't even take action yet. We're projecting all these preconceived notions. We are anticipating all the obstacles that have not even manifest yet, and they may not even be there. So these are all imaginary things. And so the best way, in my opinion, to get out of your own way if you find yourself at that stage is to move from that place of fear into faith. Firstly, the water element is to connect with really the heart of the idea and remembering that this idea is not yours, but you are the one who received it, and really cherishing this idea like a wonderful gift that someone gave you, that the invisible hand placed in your heart. And like, what a wonderful gift. I'm going to take good care of it. It's not mine. It's not mine to keep or mine to prove, but it's mine in a sense of I've received it. And it's mine in a sense of it's my responsibility to take good care of it. And then at the same time, however it grows and manifests, it's out of my hands. I cannot, because I'm small. I'm will susceptible to mistakes. I have my vulnerabilities. I have my imperfections. And that's okay. And that's precisely also because you have all these vulnerabilities, you have all these imperfections that allowed you to receive this message, to receive this idea that is also, in a sense, uniquely yours. No one will ever convey this message in the way that you do, because it is you. It is you who resonated with this message in this way. And so, okay, that is transforming and alchemizing that fear into faith. And then we spend a little bit of time. Let's take just maybe about um, a few more minutes to talk about the wood element, because I don't want to go too much into the wood element. We'll talk about that in the next live. So when we reach the stage of visioning, after we've said, I notice I'm afraid to take action, and acknowledging that fear and say, okay, I know I'm afraid. And at the same time, I know this message is too precious not to share. And this is, I must say, it's very synchronistic, because this is precisely what's happening to me right now. I know that the creative cycle is such an important framework to share. At the same time, I also feel keenly and awarely, honestly, all fully how imperfect the conditions, both my external conditions. I'm not using a perfect webcam. My lighting condition is not perfect. The place I'm filming is not perfect. Today, I've not put on any makeup. I'm putting myself with all of these challenges, and yet telling myself, I'm going to do this anyway, because this message has to go out in some way or another. And I know it will resonate and be resonant in the way that it is meant to be. And I don't take it personally if it's not perfect the first time, because this won't be the last time I do it. Because I'm committed to really seeing this message resonate as it will be. And that will take many repetitions. That will take the process of being with the message, cultivating the message, sharing it with others, seeing what works, what doesn't work, refining it, and then constantly improving it, flowing with that cycle, and then also enjoying the process, letting go of that expectation of how it might necessarily be as I hoped, and instead really being with what is. Whoever showed up today is whoever is meant to be here, including even if no one showed up. The same thing for maybe if you write a book and you're hoping a certain number of people will read it. Whoever is meant to read the book will read that book, and maybe the first few drafts or editions of the book may only reach a smaller number of people than you hoped. But perhaps it is exactly this person or these people who needed to hear that message. They will hear it. They will benefit from it. And also, more importantly, you will learn from that process through sharing that work, because it is precisely the action of doing, the action of being with the creative cycle, of connecting with that idea and then saying, I surrender. Okay, I take this idea, I feel it, I know it. Instead of saying, I'm going to do it for me, I say, I do it for this idea. And I let go of the expectation. I let go of the feeling and sense that yes, it has to reach a certain number of people. It has to, look a certain way. It has to reach a certain achievement or output or outcome. Because the idea doesn't say that. That's not the idea speaking. That's our ego speaking. It's my ego saying, I want a certain number of people to watch this live. It's my ego saying, I want a certain amount of engagement in the chat. Right? It's not the creative cycle, which is my message, telling me that it has to have a certain number of resonance in the world. No, not at all. All the message or the idea or whatever it is that is passing through you wants to do is to be manifest in the world. That's all it wants to be. It wants to be allowed. And you are the vessel to allow it to pass through you. Um, Gina, if you are still here, and also it looks like we have another friend who's just joined us. If you joined us, let us know in the chat. If you've just joined us and how this message is resonating with you. If you have any questions, any comments, of course, I'll stay on for about 5 more minutes as we wrap up, and then I'll give you also an overview of the next live. But I would really love to hear from you with regards to what so far has resonated with you on this live today. Oh, Gina, I'm very glad this has been helpful for you. And if you're tuning in live and if you've not yet joined me for the Procrastination to Inspired Action Taking Challenge, I invite you to join me. We are already on week 3, but you did not miss too much. So actually, precisely, Gina, I think it's a great timing for you if you've not yet joined the challenge. Next week, we are on week 3, which is the wood element. And this is the idea of connecting with the vision for your idea, opening to the full possibility of how it could manifest in the world in a very playful way without putting the pressure on yourself to succeed. So really, another nice metaphor that I like to think of is how some parents, not all parents, of course, how you may have observed some parents have a way of parenting in the sense of they allow their children to be, right? They see that, oh, my child has this strength, they have this curiosity, they seem to be developing in this way, they seem to be interested in that, and I'm going to do all the best I can within what I have, my financial means, my the time I have with them, to provide for them so that they can really explore the possibility and realize their potential in that way. So in the same way, the wood element, if we think about this with our idea, is if I am the parent, so-called the parent or the vessel of this idea, I see the full possibility for how it could manifest. And I do the best I can given my limited resources, because I don't have unlimited resources. I'm imperfect and I have, only certain number of hours or energy, and that's okay. And I give what I can to this idea so it can flourish in the way that it does. And that is it. And I don't say, oh no, it has to, achieve this number of A's at school, or it has to play the piano perfectly in this way, which some parents do, which we do see now. And I come from Singapore, so this kind of parenting is actually very, very common, where you see parents put a lot of pressure on their children to succeed. In the same way, how might we shift away from this very micromanaging your ideas, micromanaging your projects, into a more hands-off, laissez-faire kind of, I invest my time, my resources, all that is necessary, and I provide the conditions that is necessary and sufficient for this idea to flourish. And then however it grows is however it grows. It in no way is that necessarily a reflection of my inherent value. In no way is that necessarily a reflection of my success or failure. Yeah. I'm glad that taking care of the heart of the idea, that resonates with you, Gina. Yeah, so that is really what we'll be focusing on next Tuesday as we dive into week 3 of the Creative Cycle Action Taking Challenge. Let me share also actually that information and that live here in the chat. So if you've not yet joined that, you can subscribe using this link here in the chat, and I'll share it right now. If you're already on the mailing list, of course, then you would have probably been notified about that. So that will be happening next Tuesday. And of course, after every single live, there's a recap of what we cover. So I think this is a good place to end. I want to thank all of you who have joined me live. If you enjoyed today's live, feel free to subscribe to my channel and stay tuned. And of course, I always welcome any feedback, questions, comments. You can stay connected with me also through email. I just dropped my email here in the chat as well. I specialize and support individuals who are working with various different creative projects and who have a special message that they want to share. And yet at the same time, maybe you might be noticing that you're experiencing some difficulty throughout this creative process to put your message out into the world. So through flow and accountability coaching, this is what I really specialize in doing. And I work a lot with change makers and creatives to do that. So thank you so much for joining me for today's live. My heart is really full. It has been a really beautiful, imperfect, and at the same time humbling and very vast, very full, very infinite kind of experience for me. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. The next live will be scheduled on my profile again, and you'll be able to watch this recording on my profile. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend ahead, and I'll see you soon on my channel. Take care.